Shields ends his discussion with Anaximander. But I just want to move on and tell you a little bit about the next naturalist, the next guy from Miletus, supposedly the student of Anaximander, Anaximenes. I'm sorry, the name sounds like like Anaximander, and I realize these names are really hard to pronounce and remember, but you guys will figure that out. Okay, but what's interesting about Anaximenes is he thinks that there's a problem with Anaximander's theory. That there's something Anaximander can't explain. But he almost looks like he's taking a step backwards, and I'll tell you why. Let's see what he says, and let's see how he objects to his teacher, Anaximander. He says that the original material, the arche, the thing everything is made of and everything came from, is air. And he offers a different explanation, a new explanation. His teacher Anaximander thought the basic stuff and qualities in the world, he thought of everything as being opposites, and they were always in conflict. So that's how you get land, because the wet and the cold, is in conflict with the opposites, the dry and the hot, and they kind of get in a war and go off into their own corners, so to speak. And what's interesting is, and this is where Anaximenes really has the problem, where he finds a problem with Anaximander's theory, is when Anaximander wrote, the little that they have that's kind of remaining, or even quotes of him, are all written very poetically. And he talks about, there's one excerpt, you can take a look at it in that document that I showed you, containing the fragments, and he talks about, that there's a strife between them, and things happen out of necessity, and it sounds like it's love and war. As a result of that, the Apiran is constantly struggling with itself, and that's how things separate out, and that's how we see all these different characteristics. But Anaximenes had a different conception. He had what he thought was a better conception, is that the basic stuffs and qualities aren't necessarily opposed. They're not in a war, but rather they're in a continuum. They're in a continuous line, and that there are two processes: rarefication, which means spreading it out thinly, and condensation, compacting it, is what gets the things to look different. That is, it's not that there's a war, but he actually has two processes: spreading out of the air and condensation of the air. So he has here's his continuum. We have fire, air, wind, cold, water, earth, stone. And here's what happens. Things spread out and they become the next one on the line, and things condense. So the green arrow represents condensing. That is, if you think about what happens when you take fire and you condense it. If you've ever been in the woods, built a fire out of logs, and then you stomp it out, you see smoke going up. So it's like air going up. So you condense the fire, you get air. You condense air, wind starts moving around. When the wind moves around, what is that? And it condenses, and he's thinking it condenses more, you get clouds. When the clouds get squeezed together, what do you get? Water. When water gets squeezed together, what do you get? Like a snowball. You squeeze the water together, you get earth out of it. And if you squeeze earth together, you get stone. If you go in the other direction, the blue arrows, we have spreading out. So you take the stone, how do you spread it out? You pound it, you spread it out, it becomes earth. You spread the earth out and you mix it with things like in the kitchen, and you get the water in there. Now water, you watch it, you're sitting on the beach and you're watching the water, the sun's rays beating down on you. You watch the water start to evaporate and become a cloud. Or even if you're cooking something, you watch the vapor going up. and you see the thing moving, and you think, well, that's associated with wind, and moves out even more, and it's just air, like the atmosphere. And then if you think about it, if you take air and you're spreading it out, how do you spread it out? Have you ever seen somebody make a fire without matches? Maybe on TV, on one of the survivalist kind of programs. They rub this log together. They rub a stick in a log, and what do? Then they start blowing on it. So the blowing on it with the spreading out of everything creates the fire. So now he has a whole process. It's not love and hate. It's not any kind of war going on, but he's defined a process which he's now taken a step past Anaximenes. Anaximenes couldn't explain the process. Not only does he have the entities, but he explains the process.